and welcome to Deals with Heels. I'm Debra, your host. Welcome to the show. This week we have an amazing guest. She has an incredible story, and we are about to dig in. I felt a little bit vulnerable when I looked at some of the stuff that she's such an expert in, and so we are going to really get in it. She's going to have great tips for us. So let me just start right out with her introduction. Denise G Lee is a thought leader in healing and leadership, blending her expertise in psychology with personal experiences as a survivor and recovering addict. She helps female entrepreneurs achieve emotional and relational health while pursuing success with a focus on sobriety, authenticity, and growth. Denise provides practical tools for healing and leadership. Her work empowers women to overcome challenges, break free from unhealthy patterns, and lead with purpose. Through her platform, she encourages genuine connections and self-discovery for true success. She's the host of the podcast, The Introverted Entrepreneur. Please welcome Denise Lee to Deals with Heels. Welcome.
Debra, it's such a pleasure to be here, and I know we're just going to have a killer conversation.
We definitely are. We chatted a little bit right before we started, of course, and I could tell Denise and I are going to hit it off. And so before we get in, I, of course, want to dig deep into some of the topics, but could you just tell the audience a kind of a brief history of your journey and how you came to where you are? You've done so much. You could take up the whole show just telling us about that. But
well, I always want to let people be at ease and comfortable. And then this is not like I am on a mountaintop, giving the good news from what's above. The best way to describe me is I'm a recovering ass. I'm someone who learned the hard way that you have to be able to love yourself and love other people in order to get things done. And in order to do that, I had to really do a lot of examination about not who I was just as a woman, as an entrepreneur, but who I was as a human being interacting with other people. It was about understanding how culture has influenced me in good ways and bad ways, and being able to be really authentic about who I really was and a tapestry of fakery all around me.
I love that. That is so fantastic. I'm sure she had lots of struggles along her way, and you could hear just from my introduction. But one of the things that really struck me that I thought, I think I might be guilty of this, and I definitely know other people are as well. And it is, I want to word it. I want to read it exactly how it was worded, because that was the deal. It was the hidden cost of codependency in business. And I talk a lot on the show about healing my triggers and not being a people pleaser and putting myself first. And after raising 5 kids, and everybody came first but me, I think I might still have some lingering codependency happening, but with clients.
Okay. I just want to say this for everybody, because it's hard to listen to someone who's 27 years old trying to teach you about how not to be codependent as a business owner. Baby, you just got out of your diapers. Stop talking about things you don't understand. And if you are 27 listening, honey, I hope you understand why I'm saying I'm 43 years old. I might need Botox.
Well, so I mean, we all, it just depends on how early you learn it. So if you're out there listening and 27 years old, listen up and don't make these mistakes in the future. Learn from Denise's experience, because I'm sure about to.
Yeah, so I guess I'd say that the preference and say that even if you're 27, you may have gone through so much. You might have been a mother at 19, and you've been even momming to your mama and your grandpa and Uncle Jimmy and everyone around, and trying to hustle to make money to make sure that you have more money at the end of the month. I get that. But I'm specifically, and this conversation is not necessarily with mothers. I'm a mother myself. I wake up planning for everyone, including making dog food for the dog. Now, why am I making dog food for a Chihuahua? I don't get it, but that's a different subject. So here's the deal, right? Everyone somehow thinks, stupidly, maybe unless you've been watching Apple's Severance show, that we can have a complete separation from our work life, from our personal life. And like, we could just park our work at work or leave our home at, like it doesn't work that way. The same way that you did your operations at home bleeds into your business. And for a lot of us, we have watched and mirrored what are the people who influenced us. It could be your mother, maybe. It could be your dad. And if you were watching your mother or your father or even both of them basically act as helicopter parents around you, that's normalized. Oh yeah, they give you lunch money even though you could get a job yourself. They bailed you out of like DUIs even though you should have figured out the first time not get drunk and go behind the wheel. Like if you had repeated situations where your parents went above and beyond or they were extremely controlling and no one said, hey, check it, that's not normal. That will bleed into your business. And what does that look like bleeding into your business? Let me count the ways. I'm thinking about one particular one that goes to the top of my head where I had a client, and this was a personal training business I had, and everyone signed contracts, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think what a contract is? I agree to this, and I don't agree to this. And if we don't agree, then it's not an agreement. And so what happened was one of the things that I had was that if you don't show up by a certain time frame, the session's canceled, period. For me, and then on top of it, you're supposed to send me a notification notice, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like a busy mother, 15, 20 minutes, sending messages. Like, I was like, that was not my job.
Like you're just hanging out there always, just waiting, right? Just waiting. I know.
But that's from behavior of issues that were not resolved. Because in my mind, I thought I had to caretake another grown person that was paying for their services.
So I ended up really, maybe it's just that losing my dad at a young age, but I'm Gen X. And I mean, we had the opposite of helicopter parents. Our parents forgot we existed. And I mean, not really, but they did their own thing. They were a different generation than us. But the helicopter, that's what we did to our kids. That's what our generation did. And I was pretty good about not being a helicopter parent, but getting in that, I found my value through accomplishment. Through good deeds, right? So now I had I wanted to fix every conflict, every problem. If somebody over there didn't like me, I wanted that to be fixed. It was that abandonment, old childhood wound. And man, it felt weird putting up those boundaries and saying, nope, I don't do that. That's not that's not in my best interest. And it felt like I was a terrible mom because I had to do that with one of my children. And then it just goes against your grain when you're not used to doing it and establishing that boundary. And I find myself sometimes doing that with clients, squeezing that appointment in when I know I should be working on creative or content planning or client work. And, but that's just Debra time. Then I'm up at 11 o'clock at night, harming myself so that I can get the work that needed to be actually done rather than people pleasing into taking the appointment.
I've read a really interesting book, Debra, a few years ago. I couldn't try to date myself. It was Boundaries by Dr. Cloud and Dr. Townsend. And it was talking about what happens when we were serving people at our expense. We're basically feeding into their impulsiveness. We're basically training them to neglect us. We're making ourselves believe that we're indispensable, which is totally not true. Watch when you die how quick they'll figure things out. And the idea of like, I don't think it's necessarily a Gen X thing. I think it's an issue of like a parents that didn't know what the hell they were doing thing. And they would think you could figure it out, which is kind of like an abandonment. It's like, how do you deal with that wound? It was supposed to be filled by mom and dad. Well, I'm going to naturally find someone else to fill that vacuum. I want to find it through my in academia. Okay, I'm going to find it with my clients. I'm going to find it at the city council, like all these other places. And we're never realizing that while we're trying to do that, right, we're training ourselves to abandon ourselves in the process.
Because that's what we're used to in many ways, right?
Yeah.
For me, I think it's really deep down think about why I might do that. It is fear and scarcity mindset, right? I don't want to, what if I need to get this appointment as quickly as possible for a potential client appointment, or I need to work this in, or instead of having this is my appointment schedule for new business. And if that is not soon enough for you, let me know and I'll work an appointment in. I will fall back on that old habit and I'll be like, oh yeah, I recorded 4 episodes of my podcast and was a guest a couple of times. And now I'm going to load up on some appointments and not do any. And those things drain my bandwidth, but I would find myself doing it. And then I would just be so spent. I couldn't do the rest of the stuff that I needed to do. And then I'd be hard on myself.
You know,
That's
I want, yeah.
a typical Debra thing. Then I'd be really hard on myself. And so if I plan it and I am able to think about it, then I will preempt and not allow that to happen. But I will give in, or it's not even that I'm being pressured by that person. Sometimes it's like this internal thing that if I don't do it, I'm going to miss it. Maybe. I can't figure it out, but I catch myself doing it and it's a bad habit.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I really dive into the scarcity mindset and thinking that if you don't do it now, you lose the opportunity. And this is like, this is not just to you, Debra, like for everyone who's listening, you're not Amazon, all right? 2-day guaranteed delivery. Like,
Right.
like, you're like, what can I transform myself into a robot that has absolute satisfaction guaranteed?
Exactly.
And like I want everyone to say that out loud. And if you're laughing, then you hear the ridiculousness of it. I think for a lot of us, we need to hear the ridiculousness of the pressure we put on ourselves.
It is. And then when I the typical gifted kid, that gifted and talented program from Gen X and so achieve, right? If my mom wasn't happy, well, I'll just win this or I'll be this. And I'm one of those annoying people. I'm pretty good at most things I try. And so I had, I'm so happy. Well, what else can I do to please other people? And it definitely falls over into scarcity mindset. People don't think of it like that. But anytime you're worrying about fulfilling something, that's scarcity mindset. Because you don't have to worry about that. What's meant for you is always for you. And it will come if you just are grateful and do the work and take action. It will happen. But worrying about being left out or not getting it, I mean, that'll kill it for sure.
You know, for a lot of people, they know that they have a desire, right, to feel validated. And I don't want to simply say, well, if you just your gratitude list, you'll be all better. Like, no, that's really not really the solution. The solution is having some big old ugly cry fest about the ways you were abandoned. Having some really heartfelt conversations and writing letters that no one will read about how you felt like you needed to measure up to people who didn't, quite frankly, care about your emotional well-being. That's some really ugly, nasty things. I remember, Debra, was it last year or the year before? Oh, yeah, last year. I was hearing about Susan Wojcicki dying, right? She was the former head of CEO of YouTube, right? Woman had like 4 kids and she was running a huge operation. And a lot was happening with her. One of her kids like killed themselves. And then later that same, like, within the same time frame, she just said, look, I'm out, I'm retiring. And then she just died. And like people think like, oh, that was just a fluke, right? Her kid died, and then later she retired and then she died. Like, no, what I think is that the woman was flooded with cortisol, norepinephrine, and adrenaline, and stress hormones, and never was able to actually allow herself to be settled and and in sync with who she really was as a woman, because she was so busy leaning and serving and trying to feed everyone. She was depleted, and the cancer or whatever she had killed her. And I speak with a lot. I mean, I'm 43. You're in the prime. You're prime yourself.
Yeah, it's not a secret. It's not a secret to our audience how old I am, because I mean, that is the deal, having to start over. And I raised 5 kids. I sacrificed a lot to do it. And I took care of my mom for 5 years when she was diagnosed with cancer. And I ran my husband's businesses, my passion, all of that. I was so focused on making sure everybody else is okay. It's like survival almost. And it's not that taking care of your kids is a bad thing. It's not. I wanted to do a great job, and I did. I've got great kids, but I lost myself in the process. I didn't stand up for myself in the process. And that's the lesson. That's the boundary is, yes, do all of those things, but also honor yourself and make sure when you make a decision, is this the best decision for me as an individual? And if not, how can I change it and still take care of the people that I'm responsible for? Because that doesn't change. The people you love don't change, and they want you to be healthy and take care of them too. And I will tell you, I am healthier today at 58 years old than I was in my 40s, because I was lost and I didn't take care of myself spiritually. I didn't take care of I did start meditating about 15 years ago, and that obviously helped me on my journey, but I was in fight or flight. That's how far gone I really was. I was in functional freeze for about 10 years, and I was unhealthy. I felt frail. I was an athlete. I wasn't used to feeling frail, and I refused to accept that that's just what you feel like when you start getting in your prime of age, right? I mean, a lot of people my age, they don't do kickboxing and they don't work the hours that I work. And it's just, it doesn't have to be that way. If you take care of yourself and you follow your passions, and it's not like I'm up doing kickboxing every day, you guys, I'm not. We're lucky if I get my stretching in every day, but I eat real food and I meditate and pray and take care of myself. And I don't drink a lot. I do drink some, but I don't drink a lot. And it's just those things that I don't drink our fluorinated water. So focusing on myself has made such a huge difference. And I can work my 40-year-old something under the table today at 58. So
I love that. I love that. You know, for those who are listening, I want to kind of rewind and talk about what that functional freeze looks like. Because for everybody who has been perfectionist, overachiever, codependent, they've gotten so used to frenzy. They don't even know what calm is. They don't even know what it means to be at that point where I physically, emotionally, spiritually cannot do anything further. And then for some of it, it's just like disinterest. For others, it's just uncontrollable irritation. You just want to snip at everything. Other people is like, I'm not getting up until 2 p.m. Like, wait a minute, 2 p.m.? Yeah, 2 p.m.
So you think, it does really feel and kind of mask itself in depression. For me, it was like this complete inability to make a hard decision or any decision. If I had one thing on my to-do list that triggered me to go into fight or flight for whatever inappropriate reason my subconscious is sending me there, I couldn't do anything on the entire damn list. And my counselor, after my mother passed away, I was in grief counseling, and I was just really on myself about procrastinating. And after he let me go and talk about all my procrastination and how I didn't understand, nothing that I need to do is difficult, for me. I should just get in there and get it done. And for some reason, I just can't do it. I'll do anything. Oh, look, my ex-husband's calling. Let me take that call. I mean, it was just this. And it said, Debra, you're not procrastinating. And I said, you're not listening. I just explained to you that I am procrastinating and I need help. And he said, no, you're in fight or flight, but you're the deer. You're in freeze. You literally can't make a decision. And he gave me a grounding technique called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it pops me out of it. It changed my life at the time because I was living like that. And I didn't even realize it until I could pop myself out of it. Now I don't have to do that very often because I healed all of those triggers, but it's a real thing. And it definitely affected me in my business and how I reacted. What tips do you have that could help somebody that finds himself in indecision in business? It's the same thing as what I was doing in my personal life. My to-do list is my work to-do list, and people get behind in their taxes. They don't do their payroll right. They don't. I think a lot of times it's because they can't make a decision until it's too late, and now they're reacting, which oftentimes is not a good decision, or they ignore.
So I want to really clarify some things for the benefit of everybody who's listening, watching, however they're choosing when consuming. So what you were describing is a sympathetic nervous response where you were just fawning. I shouldn't say fawning. You were flopping, meaning you were just in exhaustion. I didn't have the bandwidth. I didn't have the capacity. For other people, when they're going through that type of exhaustion, they're fully immersed in all those stress hormones that could be highly agitated. Those are the folks that you see on TMZ.
They're on fight. They're in the fight, right? I would have understood if I was in fight. When I was a kid, I was physical. My brother taught me how to fight when I was like 5 years old. And so it's best not to pop off at me when I was growing up. But
yeah, that's one, right? There's another one where the people remember, this was a couple of months ago. It was New York City, and this mad, crazy person literally set another person on fire. And there was people around them literally within 20 feet, Debra, just staring. Some just got the cell phones out and just recorded. And that is, again, another sympathetic nervous system response. You're just frozen. You're physically there, but you're mentally gone. That means when people are complaining or trying to talk to you about stuff, you're just indifferent. You're callous to it. Some people say you just seem so cold. I'm hearing it. I'm not feeling any connection. Some people could be sharing with you very important things, and you don't hear. You just don't care. And you don't even feel connected with yourself.
That's a terrible way to feel. And I can remember feeling that way and snapping at somebody, snapping at the dog, snapping at everybody. And really, what happened to do that? It's likely nothing that happened today. It's all of that inside feelings making us make those decisions. And it's poor to try to run your business that way, that's for sure. But it's worse just to have your life be that way because you can't fix one without fixing the other.
So I mentioned all of this to say that in order to have a solution, you have to know what you're dealing with. If you're feeling numbed, it requires different solutions. If you're feeling aggressive, perhaps you're feeling callous, perhaps you're feeling depressed, perhaps you're just feeling overwhelmed and exhausted.
Or even wanting to quit. Isn't that the flight? Is that the runaway? I'm just going to quit. I'm not going to do it anymore.
That's all part of the same umbrella. It's all in the same umbrella. You're fully adrenalized. You're basically no longer, you might have heard the expression, I'm in my reptilian brain. This is reptilian brain mode. Literally, it's what it is. You're at this most primate state, and depending, and your IQ can drop as much as 20 points in that moment. And you're physically there, but you're just working on auxiliaries.
Okay, you got to say that again for us, because we hear about in the stress of things, making bad decisions. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know why I didn't see that was going to happen. I was just so upset. Really? Tell us again about IQ.
Oh yeah. So there's a couple of books that back it up. I love the book by Robert Sapolsky, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And there's also Dr. Bruce Perry wrote a lot of books. He actually co-wrote a book with um Oprah Winfrey, and it's titled What Happened to You. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that when you're in moments when you feel stressed, overwhelmed, blood is diverted and to literally to your limbs, to like you might feel like your palms may be sweaty, or you might feel like a little weak around, and that's literally blood is flowing to your heart, your lungs, like literally your most vital organs, because it's gearing up to what may happen. And in that moment, your brain's not interested in solving physics equations. Okay.
No, right? You're all tense. You're about to fight or run or the things, right?
Energy is diverted from anything but survival, and that causes a reduction in IQ. And also during that moment, if you've gone through chronic stressful events, you suffer through sometimes long-term memory loss, trouble recalling situations because there's damage to your hippocampus, your memory center in your brain. So there's a lot of things of reasons why you need to start taking care of yourself, because you're actually screwing the way you think in the process. So that's a whole different subject.
So if you ladies get really upset and then you're trying to make decisions in your business that you're running, and you feel like just take a step, calm down,
good luck.
Get your IQ back up and take control, right? A little bit. We get so reactionary, we make rash decisions, and that's great advice. I didn't even think about it in those terms. That's fantastic advice.
Oh, I'm a nurse. I didn't even give advice. I think my advice really, I love the 5-4-3-2 method. I love box breath. I love the where are you? This is what I've done with my clients. Like when they're in a moment of stress, I said, where are you? What's happening around you? What do you see? What do you hear? That literally making them hyper aware of the environment can actually be a calming effect too, to activate your parasympathetic nervous system response, where you actually learn to calm down. Another is there's lots of grounding techniques where literally put your feet to the ground, wiggle each toe, wiggle your each fingers, see if you can wiggle your ears. Like there's little things where you can get back to calm.
I can't remember the gentleman's name, unfortunately, but I saw him on a podcast and he was talking about the science of that. And I am so nerdy. I love to go deep down the nerd rabbit hole on topics. And his message was, when you're upset like that, your subconscious mind is really in control and you don't really realize it. And so it's taking control again, consciously taking control again, letting go of it. He had a real explanation about how that works within your brain that I can't duplicate here, but it was eye-opening for me, because I think a lot of people think that psychology and stuff with the mind and the brain is made up somehow, and that it's not a part of who we are as a whole person. And it is, right? If I'm triggered by something coming from my past, then my conscious mind obviously isn't in control, or it would be like, come on, Debra, what the hell? You're not 7. I wouldn't allow that to happen if my conscious mind was in control. Obviously, I'm not. I'm triggered by it. My subconscious is taking control. It's got my emotions. I'm in a vice of it. And so I'm a very logical person. It helped me to see that. And so grounding it is really letting my conscious mind know that where I am today, the here, the now, what I see, what I feel, what I hear, I'm in a safe place. Letting my conscious take control, because I am off in dreamland, imagining and reminding myself about stuff that took place long, long ago that I haven't healed, and that still is triggering me. I like to, when you were talking about kind of the how you have to journal and write letters to yourself, and I actually have conversations with that younger version of myself, sometimes out loud. It felt really crazy when I first started doing it, but I have this photograph of me from when I was in the first grade, and I had set it there, and I would just kind of walk by and be like, "You're a badass bitch. Look at you. Look at your bad self." Right? And then we had a guest on the podcast who said to do something similar. But for me, it was really communicating and understanding that what happened when I was younger, the trauma that I suffered when I was younger, that I didn't have any control over, and it's okay. And it's okay if my parents couldn't comfort me the way I deserved, because they're just people. And I actually have those conversations with myself and say, it's all right, man, you can let that go. I've healed so many triggers having those crazy conversations, not in public or on the subway or anything like that, but it worked for me. But I know a lot of people, I mean, I write too, I journal some too, but that kind of working on my young self is, I actually have the conversations in my mind and sometimes out loud too, but it worked for me.
That's beautiful. I mean, I think people need to understand that you only have access to about 10% of your conscious thoughts, and 90% of it's unconscious. And the reason behind that is if you had pure access to every thought, every feeling, every sensation you've ever had, you literally go insane. And so your brain has a wonderful way of compartmentalizing, like separating some things out so that you can actually be functional from your day to day to day. One of the things that I have been really interested in learning more about is schizoaffective for people. You've heard of schizophrenia, right? There's also a term for schizoaffective, which is basically, what do you do when you've had so many traumatizing experiences and you never really had where your brain didn't have a really good idea of how to really sort and figure things out? You split off and you hallucinate and you see different things from a distorted idea because you weren't allowing your brain to really fully process things. And so one of the ways that we can do it in a safe way is through journaling, for sure, right? There's other ways that we can safely process this. Some people are going into hallucinogenics. It's neither here nor there with me. I think it's great under medical supervision. There is literally, people have done, there's a reason why people do healing yoga retreats, breathwork retreats. That's another way of tapping into the subconscious mind. I have learned a lot of myself through dream work analysis. Some people do hypnotherapy to access and
I've done EMDR.
eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Some friends of mine here in Oklahoma City have a theta wellness, a theta chamber that puts you in theta wave by just being in it. And Christina, my old co-host, her husband had severe PTSD. He's a war veteran. He's been shot, blown up, and it helped him immensely. So I think your mind only heals in theta. So I can get in theta mode by meditation, but I've been meditating for 15 years. And it still takes me a while to get in it, right? I can't just pop in there when I want to. But boy, does it help heal those triggers.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
painting helped me a lot. I started painting in my 50s. And it really is great for processing emotion and trauma without having to talk about it. It just kind of happens.
Yeah, there's also transcranial magnetic stimulation. It's another non-invasive way to deal with it. But there's always a point where it's for acute trauma.
Yeah,
I don't want anyone thinking that you can just do a few EMDR sessions and you're out. Like that's not how that works. It's just literally to get you to the point where you're feeling safe enough to try to go to cognitive talk-based therapy. But if you're not ready for that, there's also some painting, that's art-based therapy. There's also I forgot, it's coming to my mind. There's these role-playing, these acting type therapies where you can literally have people act as a proxy for whoever traumatized you. There's a lot of different things
some
that
role
you can
playing.
do. Role playing. I forgot there's a formal word for it, but I lost it.
I had to go through months of therapy and counseling before I was ready to do EMDR. And I had some stuff. I was molested by a teacher when I was a kid. And it's a long story that when we're really at the end, before I was ready to be, I was so triggered already. The last thing he wanted to do was bring up a bunch of stuff in glorious detail through EMDR until I was far enough along that I could handle what that was going to help me bring up. But it helped me so much. And so, well, you always know it's a great episode when the time goes by so fast. And what valuable insights that you gave us into figuring out how all of our emotions work and how that ties into us making sometimes not the best decisions for our personal life, but for our business. Sometimes you hold it in, like I would hold it in, and then it would come out later at work, or vice versa, holding in from home and it bleed over into my personal life also. So great insight. So if people in the audience, and I'm sure they probably do, want to reach out or learn more about your coaching services that will help them with all of this, how can they do that?
Yeah. The best place to reach me is go to my website, DeniseGlee.com. Literally just take my name, remove the spaces. And before you even inquire working with me, I really encourage people to read my articles. I've got a very extensive library of everything from disassociation, trauma, passive aggression, you name it, a lot of different things. If you feel like it resonates with you, you can obviously learn more about me on my website. You can hit learn about Denise, or you can just check out some of my resources I have, either working one-on-one with me or taking one of my one-off courses.
Fantastic. And we will link to that in our show notes. And are you in the studio still recording episodes or of your podcast?
Oh, yeah. So I have a podcast. It's titled the Introvert Entrepreneur Podcast, and it's been running since 2019. And then you mentioned, like, during our conversation, like, yeah, over 600 episodes. Most of them are recordings with me and myself, but I also have therapists, world-renowned thought leaders, and just really taking a deep dive of practical psychological insights that are designed for leaders and entrepreneurs.
Fantastic. It's a great podcast. I really encourage you guys to check it out. It's available on all platforms and you can link to it from her website too. So that will be in show notes. Thank you so much for being a guest. It was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation and hope that we can stay in touch. You guys can always, as usual, link to my websites in the show notes, and you can contact me from either of those websites. You can download my free ebook from the Hexagon Media website, 5 Steps to a Mindset for Success. And with that, we will see you next week. We're out. I have it all the way stuck.